the time of recording, Heihachi has just left early access, and there's plenty of excitement among Tekken fans. Considering his 30-year legacy of being one of the most iconic fighting game characters in the industry, I thought a video cataloging his history would be appropriate for the occasion. I hope you enjoy. With the added background of Heihachi given in Tekken 7, it would be best to give a bit of history before getting into the series' events chronologically. Heihachi Mishima was born the son of Jinpachi Mishima, a man who founded a globally recognized arm manufacturer during World War II. This would grant himself and his family considerable wealth, though the end of the war would instill a sense of pacifism in Jinpachi, making him shift toward a focus on martial arts instead of his usual trade. He would teach his son Heihachi and his rival and to-be spouse Kazumi Hachijo the art of Mishima Ryu Kenka Karate, also known as Mishima-style karate. As the name suggests, it's an original style of karate that would remain exclusive to direct members of the Mishima family throughout the series. 5 years after having a child with Kazumi named Kazuya, Heihachi would go on to stage a coup from within the company, renaming it the Mishima Zaibatsu and imprisoning Jinpachi beneath the family temple, Honmaru. Alarmed by this behavior, Kazumi would plead with Heihachi to change his ways, but to no avail. She had always known through premonition that Heihachi, if left to his own devices, would inevitably cause great harm to the world, with many innocent lives being lost in the process. Instead of the Mishima family dojo, Kazumi would reveal her original purpose, given to her by her family from the start, to either steer Heihachi away from his ambitions naturally, or kill him. She would then transform into a devil, forcing Heihachi to begrudgingly take her life despite his affection for her. Kazuya would come to learn of his mother's fate, confronting Heihachi, ending in him swiftly being beaten and thrown off a cliff to fend for himself. Upon managing to survive, Heihachi deemed him worthy enough to be his heir and would raise him. Kazuya would soon learn the family fighting style and receive all the benefits of his family's success, though he had never forgotten his vendetta against his father. This would eventually come to a head when Heihachi would announce the first King of Iron Fist tournament to scout strong fighters. With Heihachi himself waiting in the finals, this is where the Tekken series truly begins. Heihachi serves as the villain of the first Tekken game, though Kazuya as the protagonist was never shown to be particularly heroic himself. Things go as you would expect in a classic fighting game of the era, with Kazuya fighting his way up to his father and Heihachi being defeated by him in the finals. In a display of pure spite, Heihachi would find himself on the opposite end of his initial conflict with his son all those years ago. Kazuya, now left with his vengeance complete, had all of the Mishima Zaibatsu to himself. Heihachi would survive the fall, however, and would return in Tekken 2 as the protagonist after training in seclusion, alongside his loyal pet, Kuma. Kazuya had grown mad with power, letting his true colors show in his tenure as head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, though Heihachi seemed to be more concerned with getting his honor and fortune back from him. The announcement of a second King of Iron Fist tournament was the perfect opportunity to strike back at his son. Several fights later, Heihachi confronts and defeats not only Kazuya, but his inherited devil form just like his mother all those years ago. Not willing to settle for the same old cliff this time around, Heihachi instead drops Kazuya into an active volcano to finish him off, with an unsettling smirk at his own victory. Heihachi Mishima was once again on top, and this would last for quite some time. In the 15 years following the end of the previous tournament, Heihachi had made great strides in not only expanding the power and influence of the Mishima Zaibatsu, but also greatly improving their image in the international community. He founded a new private military branch of the Zaibatsu, called the Tekken Force, which would conduct peacekeeping operations in other countries and cultivate land to combat global hunger. A part of this initiative was the founding of Mishima Polytechnic School, an academy that primarily functioned as a training ground for potential Tekken Force recruits. With this new active military arm of the Zaibatsu, Heihachi would discover an ancient evil spirit known as Ogre inside of a temple in Mexico, that would then soon disappear. Research would reveal that acquiring a sample of this being could potentially grant extended vitality, which piqued Heihachi's interest. Initially lost as to leads of Ogre's whereabouts, an unlikely clue would come in the form of a wayward 15-year-old calling himself Kazuya's son, Jin Kazama, the child of Jun Kazama respectively. He told Heihachi of his mother's death at the hands of a creature fitting Ogre's description, and that he was made to seek out his grandfather if anything were to happen to his mother. This proved to be a golden opportunity for Heihachi, as now this would add credence to the theory that Ogre seeks out strong fighters for their souls, and he now has a strong potential heir at his doorstep who is determined to seek out the beast. From that point forward for the next 4 years, Heihachi would raise and train Jin, just as he did for Kazuya, even enrolling him into Mishima Polytechnic for a formal education. Once Jin had mastered Mishima Karate, Heihachi would then announce the third King of Iron Fist tournament. The goal of this tournament, of course, being employed to gather strong fighters to lure out Ogre, and then have Jin take his revenge. And though things would play out that way exactly, Heihachi had always been wary of Jin, especially during the course of their training sessions, more specifically, his suspicious degree of strength. Not wanting to take a chance at having another Kazuya on his hands, Heihachi would shoot Jin in the head to eliminate the potential threat, and then seize Ogre's body. This would backfire, however, as this very act would trigger Jin's devil gene, making him attack Heihachi before escaping. Despite this, Heihachi would survive the encounter, and would still have Ogre's remains to work with for his own ambitions. Two years following the events of the third Iron Fist tournament, Heihachi used the Tekken Force to raid a new biotech firm by the name of G Corporation, his goal being the recovery of the newly found body of Kazuya from the volcano. Despite having access to Ogre's genes, Heihachi couldn't make any use of it unless he had the DNA from someone who had the devil gene. With Jin's whereabouts being unknown, Kazuya's newly discovered corpse was the next best option. However, G Corporation made a grave error in reviving Kazuya, who would then proceed to fight his way through their forces and escape. Without many options left, Heihachi announced the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 to lure the father and son out so that he could have access to their DNA. But not only did Heihachi want to use Ogre's DNA on himself, but also imbue his forces with the strength of the devil, this project being known as the Devil-Human Integration Program. Heihachi would have Jin captured before he faced Kazuya in the semi-finals, with Kazuya himself confronting Heihachi in the finals, seeking Jin's location. Afterward, Heihachi would bring Kazuya to Honmaru, where he would become possessed by his own devil, knocking out Heihachi and then attempting to extract the half of his devil that went inside of Jin following his death. Jin would break out in a fit of rage, however, defeating Kazuya, though he would suddenly flee the scene after deciding against dealing a killing blow against his grandfather. The remaining two would awaken to an army of Jack robots sent by G Corporation, with Kazuya using an opportunity during the ensuing battle to push Heihachi into the Jacks, escaping before they exploded. The subsequent explosion would send Heihachi miles away, with him being presumed dead. Heihachi actually misses out on the events of Tekken 5 almost entirely, instead being evolved through actions he took years prior. By the time he had recovered from his injuries, an entire Iron Fist tournament had taken place with Jin as the winner, taking control of the Mishima Zaibatsu in the process. But with Kazuya and Jin being participants, and Heihachi himself being out of commission, who exactly announced and hosted the tournament? Well, that person would be Jinpachi Mishima. If you will recall the beginning of this story, when Jinpachi attempted to retaliate against Heihachi following his coup, he was imprisoned beneath Honmaru. Though he had initially died years after the fact, a malignant spirit had taken over his body, forcing Jinpachi to host the tournament so that someone sufficiently powerful could kill him, sparing the world from whatever was possessing him, hence him winning the tournament and the right to rule over the Zaibatsu. Though enraged at the news, Heihachi would have no choice but to bide his time and keep track of Jin's movements for another chance at seizing power. Heihachi would have to wait some time, however, as his role in Tekken 6 is similar to that of 5, mostly functioning as a vector point for key pieces of lore that would affect the main story. He mostly spends time spying on Jin while he's busy waging war with the rest of the world, in order to draw out an ancient being named Azazel to destroy it, not too dissimilar to the events of Tekken 3. Jin specifically uses his resources to deal with Kazuya, as he would take over G Corporation after a failed assassination attempt. Following in the family tradition, Jin announces a King of Iron Fist tournament to challenge his father and G Corp by proxy. Heihachi doesn't involve himself directly in this conflict, however, instead laying low until being confronted by a rogue Tekken 4 soldier suffering from amnesia. The soldier would turn out to be Lars Alexanderson, Kazuya's half-brother and son of Heihachi himself. The two would never develop a bond, however, as Heihachi only fathered Lars to see if his blood carried the devil gene. When Lars was proven to be a normal boy, he was subsequently abandoned. The two battle, but circumstances require Lars to leave, and so they part ways. Jin would eventually be successful in drawing out Azazel, striking him down at the apparent cost of his own life. With a lack of leadership over the Zaibatsu, this would be the chance that Heihachi was waiting for. Heihachi would return in Tekken 7 with a bang, as he single-handedly storms the Mishima Zaibatsu headquarters, taking out the defending Tekken Force members and Nina Williams as their commander. After he takes charge, he announces the 7th King of Iron Fist tournament, though the tournament this time around doesn't serve much of a purpose toward Heihachi's primary goal, disposing of both Jin and Kazuya. He wouldn't have much luck with Jin, however, as despite getting Claudio and his group of exorcists to cooperate in narrowing Jin's location, Lars and Lee would get to him first. Instead, Heihachi shifts his focus onto dealing with Kazuya, his first order of business being to expose his devil abilities to the world. This would not only weaken G-Corp's position on the world stage and make Kazuya a pariah, but also serve to boost confidence in the Mishima Zaibatsu by proxy. However, Heihachi, while meditating at the Mishima dojo, would be attacked by a mysterious warrior by the name of Akuma. The two do battle, and after an initial interruption by a group of Jack Sixes sent by Kazuya, they share a few words. Akuma states that he had come at the request of the late Kazumi Mishima. In exchange for her saving his life, he promised to kill Kazuya and Heihachi on her behalf. The two fight once again, with Heihachi presumably losing the fight and his life in the process. This, of course, being a ruse, as Heihachi took this opportunity to fake his own death. Akuma swiftly pursues Kazuya at G-Corp, where they do battle on the roof. Heihachi manages to record footage of Kazuya using his devil powers during the battle, intending to use said footage to tank Kazuya and G-Corp's reputation in the eyes of the general public. He then has the building leveled with the satellite laser, though it proved to be ineffective against both parties. Kazuya would soon respond by personally destroying the Mishima satellites himself, resulting in both entities being maligned by the general public. Soon after, a journalist who had been cataloging the history of the Mishima family and the ongoing conflict, who also serves as Tekken 7's narrator, informs the Mishima Zaibatsu of his work. Heihachi uses this as an opportunity to formally record his legacy, and invites the journalist for a proper interview. This is where we learn about Heihachi's past, Kazumi's death, and the very start of Kazuya's fall to darkness. At the end of the interview, Heihachi has the journalist knocked out and delivered back to Lars, who had been with him prior. Heihachi then challenges Kazuya to a duel on top of an active volcano, marking the climax of the story. Though Heihachi initially has the upper hand, even surviving against the most powerful form of Devil Kazuya up to that moment, he's worn down enough for Kazuya to deliver a fatal blow to his heart. Kazuya then drops his father into the volcano, finally ending their rivalry and leaving Jin as the one person left who can stop him from his ambitions. Of course, now it's clear that this isn't the end of Heihachi's story, and we'll have plenty more to see from the old tyrant in the very near future. I hope you all enjoy his release. This was Unwatchable.